Meet Dr. Noon S. Amun-Ra. He only eats one vegan meal a day. That's right, he only eats 1 hour a day, proving if you eat healthy, you will not lose muscle or lack energy. He even set a world record in deadlifting. But his goal is not bodybuilding or strength. It's anti-aging, longevity, and the highest quality of health and life. We're not telling people to eat only one meal a day, but we are here to show you what's possible with intermittent fasting and that we do not have to eat animal products in order to thrive. Only a handful of people on this planet have the determination to live this way, but it's amazing what happens when we do. Mankind is not supposed to have the health problems it does, and what we call aging is not normal. Let the wise words of this master teach, enlighten, and inspire you.
Hi, thanks for being here today.
It is my pleasure.
So, you only eat once a day.
That is so. Cyclic fasting, for instance, is known to potently promote growth hormone release. So throughout the duration of a daily fast, your growth hormone concentration tends to increase. If you combine that with resistance exercise in the evening, as you probably know, that increases testosterone production. When you sleep, that increases growth hormone production, IGF production. So we're talking about anabolic hormones that essentially promote the preservation of muscle tissue. So a regimen which entails daily cyclic fasting, evening resistance training, all of these things combine to enhance the preservation and also augmentation of muscle tissue.
So you're saying somebody who's in their 30s, 40s, and 50s can actually gain muscle?
If it is regimented, if it combines these factors,
right.
That is, increased growth hormone secretion as a consequence of protracted fasting.
Now, have you noticed that working out late in the day is more beneficial than working out earlier in the day? Or does it matter?
It does matter, and that is because essentially you want to enhance autophagy throughout the day. You want to be catabolizing your proteins, you want to be catabolizing stored sugar and stored body fat. But in the evening, you actually want to suppress autophagy in order to promote that preservation of muscle tissue. So it is resistance training that stimulates your skeletal muscle, that provides those metabolic factors that promote muscle retention. So yes, evening is best to do resistance exercise. We've been on the Amen regimen for approximately 15 years without fail. It entails a daily fast of 23 hours in duration, caloric restriction, that is, we consume approximately 1,000 to 1,500 calories a day. It entails specific nutraceuticals, that is, nutraceuticals that have been found to increase maximum lifespan in one or more organisms. It entails daily exercise. It entails meditation, ascesis. And basically, that is the Amen regimen. Qualitatively, the diet is devoid of meat and centers on specific staples, if you will. Basically, nuts, grains, tubers, dried fruit. We always eat in the evening. We consume our evening meal, our main meal, after our evening resistance regimen. The ultimate intent of all minimalist meditation is to progressively produce a state of sustained tranquility where ideas, images, emotions are expurgated from the mind. There are essentially 10 domains of interventional studies, what I call the tetractys of anti-aging interventions. Several are fundamental. They include caloric restriction, cyclic fasting, and specific nutraceuticals, and a range of discrete genetic modifications that alter specific physiological phenomena in organisms. Almost all of them will entail either an increase in the optimization of autophagy, and that is simply a process that enables the body to renew its tissues. Glycation is an important phenomenon. Glycation is that process whereby circulating sugars bind to protein, lipids in the body and render them resistant to renewal. That accelerates aging. You also have fat accumulation or adiposity. That has been found to increase the rate of aging and limit lifespan. The first thing we consume when we break our 23+ hour fast is what I call the amino elixir, consisting of 3 protein sources: soy, spirulina, brewer's yeast, and ideally a dozen isolated amino acids. And the next thing we consume is the main meal, one of those staples of which I mentioned earlier. These typically include beans and rice. Typically we have one of 3 beans. Cannellini beans is my favorite, the red kidney beans. And when I say bean, this is the common bean, Phaseolus vulgaris. And there are many different cultivars. But one of the main reasons that we select the bean as an optimal staple, if you will, is because there are many properties associated with the common bean that accord with lifespan extension. Roots, tubers, rice, grain, and nuts and seeds. Fruit and fresh vegetation is not high on our list of staples, and that's simply because the cellulose and the water content take up space, if you will. So if you have a regimen where you're restricting your feeding to an hour or less, and you consume foods that occupy a large volume, have a higher water content, indigestible fiber, over time that can reduce your sense of satiation. So you want to have nutritionally dense foods in order to essentially derive the most nutrients in a minimal amount of time.
Right, you want nutrient-dense food.
And then there is the minor meal. And the minor meal is nothing more than a dessert. Typically nuts, dried fruit, often what you might call peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or peanut butter and nesubat sandwiches, which roughly means royal jelly. That's one of the staples of our minor meal. That is essentially the Amen meal, the tripartite Amen meal. Throughout the 23-hour fast, we typically consume teas and herbal infusions of various sorts. That effect is partly attributable to a peptide called ghrelin, and it is released by the gastrointestinal tract in response to food deprivation. It actually increases the expression of a peptide called BDNF, brain-derived nerve growth factor, which increases the proliferation of neurons in the brain, specifically in the hippocampus, an area that's associated with learning and memory. And that is probably among the reasons that fasting and caloric restriction increase mental or cognitive acuity. I take that in powdered form in the Amen amino elixir, and it's the first thing that we consume on an empty stomach. And that's designed essentially to be sufficient as a source of energy and nutrients without the need for any food at all. So the elixir is intended to deliver all essential nutrients in a form that is easy to assimilate. And the meals are simply for satiety and indulgence, because I think that's an important point to stress. If you're going to have a lifelong regimen that is predicated upon lifespan prolongation, It has to be sufficiently palatable in order to be sustained over a lifetime. And indulgence, gratification, is an important element of enjoying life. And we do find that our diet is very palatable, very enjoyable, even with the perceived monotony. We love dinner.
So the less waste products that your body has to deal with, the more cleaner it is, more efficient it is.
Indeed.
Being clean is almost more important than massive amounts of fuel just being guzzled down.
Indeed. Another effect that has been observed widely on caloric restriction, cyclic fasting, and other interventions that increase lifespan is a decreased detoxification capacity, and more specifically an augmented expression of so-called phase 2 enzymes or xenobiotic enzymes. And these are enzymes that are specifically expressed in the liver, also kidney and other tissues, that essentially convert toxins in such a way that enables them to be expurgated from the body more efficiently. So this is thought to be a major factor in the lengthening of lifespan associated with fasting and caloric restriction.
So the organs that help eliminate toxins from the body, the liver, the kidneys, if they're cleaner, they can focus more on producing enzymes and keeping you running optimally rather than just cleaning the house and getting rid of unwanted garbage.
Indeed. And also, as we discussed together, we are exposed to multifarious toxins that we can do little as individuals to avoid in our modern environment. So to the extent to which we can augment our detoxification capacity, we can protect ourselves from some of these toxins that would otherwise be ubiquitous, that are ubiquitous, and we simply can't avoid.
Do you have a website you want them? I mean, if they say, I want to know more, I want to buy these books, where do I go?
You can go to our website, amintaeliteathlete.com. And it has a description of my overall regimen, the literature that I've produced, and how to acquire it. Subjecting yourself to self-imposed discipline is the surest way to increase the quality of your existence, period.
Great. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.